And just ships it back with no 3-drop. John Runyon attacks for 4, dropping Charlie to 16. And I have to imagine we'll see a Hero of Bladehold here unless John Runyon wants to respect the possibility of counter magic.
Oh, little stalker.
I think he has to play it, though, simply because I think he has to put Charlie on Midnight Haunting here. So instead, he's just going to play a Fiend Hunter with no targets.
That is fine.
Huh.
Midnight Haunting.
So John Runyon wants to keep up the pressure here, doesn't want to fall behind. There's that end of turn Midnight Haunting.
Attacks for 2, 3. After combat, Sword of War and Peace on the table.
Leaving Vapor Snag mana up too.
2 Oblivion Rings in John Runyon's deck to be able to stop that sword.
Yep, and gets in for 5 damage. Charlie will just take that.
There's 4 mana. Hero.
Yep, and that will immediately return to the hand.
Blink. And John emptying his hand as quickly as possible just to try to not get hurt by the sword so terribly.
Right.
But bounce.
Dropping John to 15.
Now look at Charles' life here. He's at 11, and suddenly he's about to go up to, I believe, 15. He comes in with everybody. So he comes in for 3, for 5. He's got 2 cards in his opponent's hand. So he is flipping the life totals here. It's going to be 11 to 16, and then 2 more damage to make it 9 to 16 in Charles' favor now.
Wow. That's a gigantic swing.
And then he just says go.
Yeah.
You know, like, he doesn't have to do anything else now. He's not in fear of dying at this point.
Exactly. And every land and spell he doesn't play is 1 more life each turn. So John
4 mana? We're going to see an Angelic Destiny. Oh, Hero. Before combat.
And I have to imagine we'll see this Mana Leak get used here.
I like the Mana Leak. Yeah.
It's one of the only cards you're worried about. Gindy knows that he's tapped too low to cast Oblivion Ring.
Attack. A grand total of 5 damage coming in, and then he says go. Gindy quickly untaps. He's got Vapor Snag in his hand. Comes in with everybody. A tap from the Gideon's Lawkeeper holds back 1 spirit, but that's still going to be 3, 4,
5. Because John Runyon has 1 card.
4, and then the +1 for 5, and bringing Gindy up another little burst of life.
4 more life.
And that's it.
Wow.
Zing.
Walker, Sword of War and Peace. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's so shocking about Invisible Stalker is that Shroud plus Unblockable really means you have to do global effects in order to take care of the problem.
Right. Rolling Temblers, Wrath of God, things like that.
For those of you who are just joining us, that was the first game of the finals of the Star City Games Open Series here live in Atlanta. I'm Adrian Sullivan, joined here by Zach Hall.
Not Zach Hill.
Not Zach Hill.
We can't mention his name anymore, by the way.
What? I love Zach Hill.
Okay.
Chatter. For those of you who have been watching all weekend so far, we had 550 players. We're down to 2. Down
Soon
to
be
2
1, too.
players. Yes, exactly. Soon to be 1 player. And so one of the things that we like to do at these events is give away some premium.
A whole year.
A whole year is up for grabs now in these in this contest, premium contest giveaway.
And just again, make sure you use the hashtag SCG Premium when you answer.
Yes. Hashtag SCG Premium for the answer. And again, I have a fun little trivia question. Is it okay if I drop the trivia question?
Let's hear it.
Okay, excellent.
Only if I get to answer too.
Okay. So, in the print side of the coverage, one of the decks that was featured was a deck designed by Glenn Jones and piloted by his friend Ben Isger.
Not Isgar.
Now,
Isgar.
Ben got 9th place. His deck looked a lot like Tempered Steel.
Right.
But what kind of steel was he running? It's not Tempered Steel. So answer with the hashtag SCG Premium. What kind of steel did the deck Ben Isger, pardon me, Ben.
9th place.
What kind did he play? Not Tempered Steel. What kind of steel?
So go find that on our coverage, or if you remember it, just tweet in and let us know.
Hashtag SCG Premium. 1 year of premium will be allotted to one of the random people who have selected the correct answer.
Exactly. You don't have to be first, you just have to answer right.
That's correct. Okay. and
Before
now
the match is over.
Looking at the sideboarding for our match underway for Charles Gindy versus John Runyon. If I was John Runyon, we talked about this a little bit. Timelies are definitely a card I want to come in.
Right.
Swords, definitely a card
so
I want to come in.
Dismember's 8.
I like this member. I don't think he's going to do it. He didn't do it last time.
Probably not.
He's going to bring in Mortar Pod again, I think.
Yeah. So that's 7.
And I think he's going to bring in Negate.
He seemed to like the Negate. I'm not a big fan of it, but he liked
it's great.
it. So that's 9.
And how does he actually make room for all of that, though?
Well, like you said, the 4 Mirren Crusader, the 3 Angelic Destiny, easy cuts.
Those are gone.
Then
but
he
now,
needs 2 more.
What do you do?
I'm not really sure.
I wonder if Champion of the Parish is just too wishy-washy to be able to get things done. Great on turn 1, but against a deck with bounce, not great any other time. Because it's not even necessarily great if it gets gut shot.
Right. Although I think John sort of does need to empty his hand, make sure that Sword of War Piece doesn't just end the game when it connects, and actually make a contribution to the board. Fiend Hunter actually not that good against Charlie.
I actually still like Fiend Hunter. I mean, yes, there are 6 creatures he can't hit, but getting a Delver, or even a token from Midnight Haunting, or a Moorland Haunt, I think those are going to be things that are going to help swing games.
Yeah.
So we saw John just drop it on the table as a 1/3. Even just dropping it on the table can be reasonable because then with a 1/1 help, it can kill a Geist.
That's true. It's a good blocker against most of the creatures in Charlie's deck, except Delver and Invisible Stalker. But looking at the other side of things, we already talked about the Ratchet Bombs, the Oblivion Rings, the Phantasmal Images. The image is a little dicey to bring in against a deck with 2 Gideon's Lawkeeper, but I expect Gindy to save his gut shots for those.
Yeah, and I also think that the Phantasmal Image is a card that copying your opponent's hero or Geist can be huge. Copying your own Delver can be huge.
Right.
And there are only a couple of cards that mess with your Phantasmal Image from your opponent that aren't cards that would have done something anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Mostly just Mortar Pod and Gideon's Lawkeeper, which are only 3 cards.
Now, I think that the consensus from a lot of people is that Timely Reinforcements should come in for Charles. We'll see if he does it this time, but I know in talking with him before, he did not seem excited about Timely Reinforcements as a sideboard card in this kind of matchup.
Right. At first, it seems like it would be one of the best cards in the matchup, but the way we've seen it play out...
I mean, I do like it, but I'm not sure if he likes it. And I don't know if I like it enough to bring it in myself.
Right.
I mean, Gindy has had a lot of success with his deck, so if he feels a certain way, I think he might just keep going the same way.
Yeah, I would definitely side with Gindy, no matter what I personally think. He's certainly a better player than me, and he's played the deck a lot more than me. So I'm just gonna assume he's right for not bringing in Timely Reinforcements. We'll have to ask him if he wins the match. So Ben Isger tweets in, "Now just tell them all to follow me in my exploits." Well, coming 8th, not 9th, my friend.
I managed to say Isger correctly the first time I met him, and I have apparently said it wrong most of the other times I've said it. So I keep on pausing because I don't want to say Ben's name wrong, particularly calling him Brian by accident there.
Yeah, Brian Isgar? Is that the man you're referring to?
Oh, yeah. Brian Kowal.
Yeah. Brian David Isgar? Is that it? So players shuffling up for game 2. It looks like John's fine with his 7. Gindy going back for 6. So a reverse of game 1, where Runyon mulled the 6 and Gindy kept 7. So on the play, do you think the matchup swings John Runyon's way?
No.
No, not even with the play?
I mean, I think he gets a couple of percentage points, but I think the scales are still weighed in Charles' favor.
Right. I definitely agree. And I think I want to go back to that last game. A crucial moment in that last game, I think a lot of players would have immediately Vapor Snagged that Mirren Crusader when it attacked him.
Yeah.
But he didn't do it the first time. He didn't do it the second time. He took 2 hits from it. He let the hero land, and then he Vapor Snagged it. He knew that he had life to play with.
Yeah. I mean, your life is a resource.
Right.
And the times that things happen matter.
Exactly. If he had Vapor Snagged that Mirren Crusader the first time, I think he might have lost that game from the hero.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. So Gindy played that perfectly. Vapor Snagged it just the right time. He won the game. So Gindy content on 6. And Doom Traveler cracks in for 1. That was John Runyon's first turn play. Turn 2 just says go. Mana Leak in hand, so he did keep that in. And Ratchet Bomb.
Ratchet.
John Runyon does not Mana Leak the Ratchet Bomb, even though he has a Sword of War and Peace in his hand.
One of the things that's really exciting about Invisible Stalker and Runechanter's Pike is you can kind of play what I term kind of a hybrid control deck, where you don't actually come out the gate screaming, but you can slow it up a little bit, be a little control-y, just a little bit here and there, and then take over the game with a huge aggressive surge. Much like Fairies kind of played out, where it's like, control, kill you.
Exactly. Also, it's worth noting that the threats in Gindy's deck are gigantic. Sword of War and Peace is gigantic. Runechanter's Pike is gigantic.
Now, Charles here can be, he can take damage from Runyon. Take, for example, 5 damage and put a Midnight Haunting out and kill the Geist.
Right.
Potentially.
John does have a Mana Leak in hand, but we'll see if he wants to use it. Ooh,
Snapcaster works.
Snapcaster.
I like using Snapcaster as a blue Doomblade sometimes.
Ambush Viper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the 2/1 flash, no other abilities, gets Mana Leaked. And Gindy takes 7, dropping to 8 or to 11 life rather.
I love that Charles did that. Not enough people are willing to throw away a Snapcaster Mage. They really want to milk it for all of its worth. But sometimes just an Ambush Viper is enough.
It is. And that was
A
definitely
weak
the right
Ambush
play.
Viper can be enough.
Yeah. No Death Touch. And Gindy says go again. Ooh, Honor of the Pure in hand, Sword of War and Peace, and Hero of Blade Hold. So a really powerful hand for John Runyon. Oblivion Ring too, just in case. So it looks like John's thinking about diversifying his casting costs here with Honor of the Pure. That would also let him play around another Snapcaster and a Midnight Haunting. I think I might just lay the hero, though. I think you have to give Gindy credit for not keeping in Mana Leak on the draw.
In they come, threatening 7 damage.
Angel comes in attacking, and here's a Vapor Snag.
On what?
The Angel token.
Just looking to buy some time.
Exactly. And now Snapcaster will let him rebuy that Vapor Snag.
Block. And he does not have to cast that Vapor Snag right away.
And that,
I don't like that, Charles.
So John Runyon drops to 18. Gindy takes no damage in that turn. Now John will drop.
I would have liked to take 1 and had that Vapor Snag available.
Definitely. A lot of players fall into that trap. They think that they need to they think that they need to cast their instant right then, before the Snapcaster dies. So Ratchet Bomb ticks up to 3 counters, and Gindy draws
Oblivion
the
Ring
Oblivion
off
Ring.
the top. Now, the thing is that he also knows that his opponent has Sword of War and Peace in the deck.
Right. So keeping that Ratchet Bomb on 3 and having Oblivion Ring in play unfortunately won't work that well.
Ponder to see what else he's got. Oh, Vapor Snag. That works.
So
Vapor Snag is a dangerous card in this matchup. If you're not on the beatdown, you're going to lose that. You're going to gain some tempo, but the card advantage loss will catch up with you.
Right. John
does
Runyon
catch up.
at 17, but he has a grip full of very good spells. He just draws a second Hero of Blade Hold, and he just has 6 super powerful spells in his hand. And that Ratchet Bomb cannot kill all of them. And John Runyon looks like he decides on Doom Traveler and Honor of the Pure.
John redeploys on the small side, very wise.
Yep.
And Charles sets his Ratchet Bomb for a 4, preemptively ready for a hero.
He knows he's going to have to deal with that card at some point.
Another Vapor Snag. The Ponder, perhaps? Nope, a Delver. Followed up by Oblivion Ring.
Wow.
Taking the Honor the Pure, a great choice, I think. But we're going to see, I think, the emergence of a Sword of War and Peace for John Runyon now.
Yep, he did draw an untapped land, so that's what we'll see here.
3.
Uh-oh.
2.
trap.
Attack for 3. How many cards do you have in your hand? 1.
So that's going to represent
4 damage
4
total.
damage. And John Runyon gave, I believe, 4 life. 3 life. So John Runyon gains 3, goes up to 20. Gindy drops to 7.
And Gindy doesn't really have anything in his hand now. I think that's a land he just drew, and he's got a, I think, does he have a Vapor Snag and a land?
It might be land. I can't quite tell. But either way, Delver did not flip. Yeah, Seachrome Coast. John Runyon also drawing the Seachrome Coast. But he has a little more to do with that mana. John Runyon attacks for another 4 damage, dropping Gindy to 3, and himself gaining 4 up to 23. So this is Gindy's last turn unless he can draw. Ooh, that's a good one to start with.
And let's see what else he can find. I still think 3 Moon Ponder is the way to go. Oh, none of those are any good. Get rid of them.
Immediately shuffle.
So quick.
Yep.
And, you know, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about useful bluffs and not useful bluffs. Some people will look at that and be like, oh, what should I do? Is it a good... if they're actually going to be shuffled away, there probably isn't much benefit to bluffing that maybe you could have
drawn. Your opponent knows that you have good cards in your deck. That doesn't help you much.
You know.
Gindy draws an Oblivion Ring. Look at that.
Was that?
It was an Oblivion Ring.
Oh, boy. Are you sure?
I believe so. And here it is, Oblivion Ring.
Oh, boy.
Off the Ponder. Of course, we know John Runyon has an Oblivion Ring of his own. But Gindy's still in the game.
Goodbye, sword.
And I'll take that.
Seems so sad that the sword can't protect itself.
Right.
I'm glad it can't.
And now Gindy wants to decide if he's going to trade 3 life for 1, and he does, dropping John to 20. But he himself only at 3. So John draws another Seachrome Coast. O-Ring.
Oh, and Charles is like, that's all she wrote.
Yep, that's going to be it. So Charles draws the 1 card he needed, but it wasn't enough. Mistiming of the Vapor Snag. Not sure if that ended up mattering. Maybe it would have bought him 1 more draw phase, but he was still in a rough position.
Yeah. Without a card like Curiosity to catch him up.
Oh, of course. So these players are going to a rubber game. Game 3 of the finals. Gindy will be on the play this game, though. And I think the matchup, I agree, it is swinging in his favor.
He mulliganed that game. He was on the draw. He didn't have a 1-drop. Obviously, he only has 4 1-drop creatures. So,
still, though, he has Ponder. And he has Gitaxian Probe, which we didn't see that game. He might have taken those out.
I think that, you know, when it comes to where Probe is most useful in all of the matchups where the life is an easy resource to use.
Right.
If you're playing against a control deck, if you're playing against a ramp deck, Gitaxian Probe can be awesome because that life, it's yours to play with.
Yeah, it's probably not going to matter.
Yeah.
A deck like Ramp will kill you. It doesn't matter if you have 2 more life.
So knowing, for example, if your opponent has a Galvanic Blast in their hand or not can make a huge difference when you're talking about a deck that runs equipment.
Right. Now, John Runyon's deck, it's all sorcery speed. With a couple exceptions out of the sideboard, it's all sorcery speed. Almost all creatures are enchantments. There's just not much to play around. Gindy knows what's coming. A creature's going to come down. It's going to be a good, efficient creature. And if not, he's probably winning. So no real reason to play Gitaxian Probe. Like we were saying before, he probably has to keep a few in to fuel his Delvers and to smooth out his draws. But I expect to see him go down to 1, maybe 2. So John Runyon looks like he's checking his sideboard again. Maybe wants to make some changes since now he'll be on the draw.
And also, one of the things that he has now seen is that Charles's approach slows the game down.
Right.
That Charles is going into Oblivion Rings and going into Ratchet Bombs. So that what that means for John is he can expect that a slower strategy means he should consider perhaps a slower response.
That's a good point. I think maybe we're more likely to see the negates now.
I think we are more likely to see the negates, and he might make his timelies more like a 3 of rather than a 4 of.
I like that.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily correct, but one of my favorite things that from one of my favorite Magic players, Brian Cole, is Brian Kowal says that when you see sideboard guides in articles, or when somebody gives you a sideboard guide for a deck, or you talk to someone and they give you a sideboard guide, usually that is wrong.
Just blanket statement and wrong. Okay.
Because you shouldn't sideboard against a deck. You should sideboard against a player. And Charles, for example, has a particular approach to this matchup that is different than it sounds like a lot of people's approaches are with this style of deck. And so if you sideboard, you're like, well, he's playing a blue-base Delver deck with white and Moorland Haunt. Here's my sideboard plan.
Yeah, of course I want timely reinforcements.
And Charles goes, I'm slowing it down.
You have to adapt to exactly what your opponent's doing.
Yeah.
Just because one thing is right in one matchup does not mean it's right in the other.
I mean, let's pretend, for example, that you're playing in a red mirror match in a certain moment in time, and you know for sure that your opponent boards out the little creatures and goes big. If you look at the red mirror match sideboard guide that you have, it might do things that help you fight against little creatures. But this player didn't do that. And so suddenly you're fighting the wrong fight.
I find it sort of helps to look at the decks you're playing against in terms of archetypes rather than in terms of colors. Like, you can say, oh, I'm playing a red deck, I want timely. Instead say, oh, I'm playing a deck that's focusing on 3-drops and 4-drops, or oh, that's focusing on small, efficient burn spells.
Right.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
Blue decks can be aggressive, red decks can be control. It's
absolutely
not just defined.
Yeah, I remember maybe 2 years ago, the beginning of Zendikar style red, where one of my sideboard plans for a particular red deck I had, I would go big, and my opponents, they'd be like, aha, I'm going to really get you with my controlling cards. And so suddenly I would be out controlling them, and they would be like, but I thought my core Firewalker was going to be awesome. And I'd be like, this is a punishing fire. How are you doing with all of your table and my 26 lands and Valakuts versus, oh, I see it's a Baneslayer Angel. This is a Chandra.
Hello, Baneslayer. So players looks like they're shuffling up. Also, a pretty good example of that is the Zoo decks back when they had Wild Mikado at their at their disposal. They'd often board in stuff like Knight of the Reliquary. They'd often go big with Woolly Thoctar, Gideon Jura, Elspeth, Knight Errant.
I love Gideon Jura in the sideboard of aggressive decks.
Oh, it's so good.
It's such a monster because it's also a 6/6.
Yeah, it's indestructible virtually for combat at least.
Okay, looking at their hands, Charles is now shuffled up. Looks like he says he's keeping. John Runyon looking at his hand for the first time. John looks a little bit more thoughtful. I think I see a keep.
Yeah, he keeps.
He goes Island, Ponder.
Ooh, so no Delver again.
Well, only 4 1-drop creatures in his deck.
Right.
Mana Leak in Charles' hand.
So did either side those back in or keep those in for the play.
And it looks like he didn't even rearrange anything. He's like, these are good. John Runyon. First land is a plane, says go.
No 1-drop.
Charles lays a Seacrum Coast, says go. He's got his Mana Leak up and ready. Turn 2 from Charles Runyon. Honor. That's a huge threat. Mana Leak is perfect there. Draws land, Geist.
Ooh, a freshly drawn Geist gets played.
And we see a Timely and a Sword of War and Peace.
Wow. Certainly the wrong tools to fight against Geist of St. Draft.
I don't know if I'd... That works?
Yeah, it
3 1/1s. I don't mind that one bit against Geist, honestly.
No, and...
No life, but that's 3 1/1s.
Yeah, you have to do what you have to do. That Geist was going to take huge chunks out of his life.
Triple block can prevent a single unsummon from taking things down.
Yep. And Charles sitting on a Mana Leak, and I believe that might be an equipment in his hand. Oh, that's a Ratchet Bomb.
Boom! Bye-bye world.
Mana Leak
in
up,
for 6. Mana
6.
Leak available. Does he have it in hand?
He does.
Oh.
He does. So this is a great draw from Gindy, capitalizing on a slower draw from John. Being on the play really solidified it.
I think we're going to see the Sword of War and Peace come down in the next 2 turns. Hero?
Mana Leak.
No hero. We don't need that.
And drop you to 8. Draw a Delver of Secrets for good measure. There it is.
Delver and
Moorland
a Haunt.
Wow. It's just a superb draw from Gindy.
We got Oblivion Ring and Sword of War and Peace.
So all reactive cards in John Runyon's hand, 2 Swords, Oblivion Ring, Honor of the Peer. None of those fight Geist. At this point, he just has to Oblivion Ring that Delver.
I agree. I mean, if he had had an untapped land come into play here, he could have cast the Honor of the Pure, and been able to bring a Spirit out to block Geist.
Right.
But it comes into play tapped, so he does not have the mana.
Oh, instead he's just going to sit on his Moorland Chump Block. Oh, man.
Midnight
it.
Haunting.
Wow.
John Runyon extends the hand. Charles Gindy takes it down. Looks pretty satisfied with that one.
He's happy with that draw. Charles Gindy, your SCG Open Standard Atlanta champion. John Runyon, your runner-up.
Look at that. There's the trophy.
Congratulations to both players. He's looking for it. Oh.
Another winner that we have is Johnny Utah 8000. That's Matt Lehman. And Matt